All right, guys. The time has come. Welcome to Breaking Free 2020. If you guys notice, we are live in our regular Facebook group, and we'll explain why here in a moment. Actually, I'll explain it right now before I get to the sharing, right? Because I'm gonna get in contact with some people. But the reason why we're live on this page is we ran into some technical difficulties that only reaffirmed for me that the things we're going to talk about tonight are extremely powerful. And sometimes when you make powerful moves, you might get some powerful resistance. You know what I mean? And
Sure do.
it's just the law of the universe. So I mean, we were ready, we were amped, we were ready to go, and every technical difficulty that we possibly could have, we did have. But if you see, we're still here, we're still rocking and rolling, and we're gonna break through this. We're gonna fight through it, and we're gonna deliver to you guys. So everything happens for a reason. I think that we had to go on this page so that way the individuals who didn't have an opportunity to or didn't understand quite how to. There was a couple people that were a little confused on how to sign up. You guys are going to be able to see this on our regular page today, and then tomorrow we'll figure it out and we'll go back over. So this opportunity for you guys to get a glimpse of what we're going to be doing, and then once you get a glimpse, you get signed up, and then we'll go over to the private group tomorrow and Wednesday. So we are here, Breaking Free 2020 Day 1. Nikki Lil, you want to say something to the people before we dive in?
I just want to welcome everyone and let you know that we are so happy that you guys joined us, and we're really, really pumped up about sharing this information with you. I know there's a little confusion, but we're figuring it out right now, and this is life. This is how things happen sometimes. It's not perfect, but there's a solution to every problem, and we're figuring that out right now. So
Sure.
I'm really excited for you. And like Jason said, for anybody that didn't get the chance to pre-register officially, this will give you opportunity to still do that. And then by tomorrow, we should be streaming in our private group as we originally planned. So again, thank you all for joining us. We're excited to be here. We're excited about 2021. It's already starting on such a great foot. So this is just going to give you the power and the opportunity to really take the skill set that we're teaching and apply it to your life.
For sure. So I think it's time to dive in to tonight. What I would say before we actually really get going here, I would recommend that everyone, if you haven't already, have a notebook handy, because there may be some things that you would want to write down. I would suggest that, and we'll be sharing some information via email with the individuals who did sign up. You will get some cool things that you can use and incorporate, going forward.
Yes, and I'm actually in the process right now of sharing this a link into the private group. So if you are in the private group instead of here with us, I'm going to post this link up right there. So it should be accessible to watch either here or there. Yes, perfect. So if you're either in the private group or if you're in a regular group, again, just thank you so much for being here and sticking with us. Life is not perfect, but we will figure this all out together. So that link's in there. So if you're hanging in the private Facebook group, you can catch that link right with us. And like Jason said, I think it's time for us to get started.
So yeah, if you wanna take us away, take us into the first, the first thing we're gonna touch on tonight, and then from here it's lights out, and we're just gonna go with the flow and allow wisdom to flow through us and have a powerful night for sure.
Yes, for sure. So today we're going to focus on, if you caught our live stream last Wednesday, we talked about the eye of the storm, and really being aware of where you're putting your attention to on a day-to-day basis. So today we're going to be shifting gears similar to that, but we're going to be talking about focus and focusing on the right things and not the wrong things. So first point here is going to be talking about focusing on the good. So, especially when things are not going so great, it's really easy to get caught up in the idea of, focusing on the negative. And when you focus on the negative, of course, more negative things come your way. It's just the way of the universe, interconnected with the idea of the law of attraction, something that we will definitely be talking more and more about as we proceed forward. And what we want to really think about is the idea of energy flowing where energy is going. So think about the concept of something like wind. The wind blows and it blows the leaves and it blows paper and any like rubbish around with it. The energy is flowing in that same direction. This is the same idea as if you were focusing on the negative all the time. So you're focusing on the negative concepts, or maybe like, you know, your job is not that great, or your life at home, your work-home relationship is not that stable. What happens is, you know, the idea of that negative space at work coming home with you, and then the negativity is pouring out into your home relationships. So when we focus on the good and flow that positive energy into everything that we do, of course, more positive things come out of it. So back to the home and work life. So if you're thinking about your job and, you know, you have a really healthy work life, chances are you have a really great home life. And, you know, that's not an accident. That's just the energy of the positivity that's happening at work flowing into your home life and vice versa. So really, we want to think about the idea of our energy flowing where we concentrate it. So if you're concentrating it on the bad, what happens? More bad happens. If you concentrate it on the good, more good happens. And not only more good happens, but you learn this skill set in order to focus on, even when bad things do happen, how to create a solution to it. Just for example, what just happened to us right now, you know, it was a little bit chaotic for a second, but we both kept our cool. Yeah. We had no idea. You know, we've been using this Melon streaming app for a little while now, and we had a few technical difficulties the first couple times we used it, but recently it's been smooth sailing, and today it just happened to not work well for us. So if me and Jason got caught up in the idea of this is not working, why is this not working, this is terrible, you know, we probably wouldn't be streaming live right now because we'd still be stuck in the terrible. But we both just got together and we said, we'll figure this out. We need to figure this out right now. How can we create a solution to this issue? And of course, lo and behold, we were 5-6 minutes late, but we made it happen, you know, and we got to the people that we needed to get the information to. And like he said, this may have had happen to grow and reach a larger audience. Larger audience wasn't accessible in the private group. There's so many different things that could be happening in the universe in the background. Maybe there's this one person that this is reaching tonight that wouldn't have been able to access this in a different space, that, you know, they hear this one thing that could transform their whole entire lives. Like sometimes it's not obvious. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's not obvious why things happen a certain type of way, but I promise you, you know, there's a reason for it, which has been attracted by you by previous thoughts, you know, and programming. So energy flowing where energy is going. You know, when things don't go quite your way, getting caught up on that is just going to create more of that. So really going into the idea of focusing on the good. It's such a simple concept, but it's so, so powerful. And the idea will really transform your life. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along.
Yes, for sure, for sure. And I mean, and to continue on, you know, the same wavelength, the next thing we want to kind of touch on is the fact that, or the truth that, you know, your thoughts become things.
Right.
And it's very important to understand this because we must be skillful in our thinking, and we must have discipline when it comes to how we think, because a lot of times we're in response to our thoughts. So we have a thought and it's like, oh, I had this thought. And then we try to figure it out after that. But we have to develop a skill set to actually get ahead of our thoughts, right? And start to, when we do have these thoughts, rather than being totally reactive to the thoughts that we're having, start to learn how to control the thoughts that you're having. What thoughts have space inside of your mind? And the reason being is that when you have a thought, scientifically, thoughts have an energy signature, right? So when you have a thought, you're sending out an energy, and that energy is going out and it's impacting all of the things around you. So when we say that thoughts become things, it's like that negative thought that sends out that negative energy signature is affecting not only you, but it's affecting people around you, and it's affecting other things around you. You know, you heard, everybody's heard this story about, you know, the plants, and when it comes to the energy that people give to their plants, right? They had two plants, both plants they gave the same amount of sunlight, and they gave the same amount of food to both plants. The difference in the two plants was only that one of the plants they use negative energy towards that plant. They use negative words. You know, they didn't show no love to the plant. And as silly as this sounds, you're like, what are you talking about, a plant? But if you
That's a
listen,
living thing.
yeah, if you catch it, you know, by them giving that negative energy to that plant, getting the same amount of sunlight and the same amount of food as the other plant, which, you know, they were like, oh, you're so beautiful, and they're being pleasant to the plant, maybe even playing pleasant music for the plant. One plant lived, one plant flourished, and the other plant actually dwindled and died away, right? So this just illustrates the fact that when we have these thoughts, when we have these thoughts, our thoughts, right, will shape the words that we use. It will shape the way that we maneuver in the world. And when we do these certain things, it has an effect on our environment. So if we can grasp that, it puts us in a place of power, because it allows us to then get ahead of our thoughts, and rather than being at effect of whatever thoughts it is that are coming through us, we can get ahead of them and then start to skillfully build how we think. Because if we understand that our thoughts and our thought patterns are creating things in our actual world, are manifesting into actual physical either things or circumstance, then we can go ahead and cater our thoughts to create things in our environment that are conducive to the life that we want to live. If you want a more positive, if you want a more joy-filled, if you want a more happy, prosperous life, then you have to think accordingly. If you think that life is sad, if you think that life is gloomy, if you think that life is, you know, something's always going to happen bad, there's always something bad that's going to happen, and there's just no hope, no matter what I do, you know, do. If that's how you're thinking, then that's going to manifest all around you. And it's almost like the more you think that way, the more those things manifest in your life. The more those things manifest in your life, it reaffirms your thinking, and it's just spirals, and things get worse and worse and worse and worse. So you got to break the thought patterns that you're holding, because your thoughts are the things that are shaping everything that's around you. So it's important that you understand that your thoughts actually become things, and that you this is going to sound funny, but put some thought into how you're thinking. I mean, put some thought into how you're thinking, and really get ahead of your thoughts, so you're not living in reaction to random thoughts. Because I'll share something with you. A majority of the thoughts that are in your head don't even belong to you.
Facts.
You know what I mean? So when you really get deep into that, or you get behind that, what it highlights is the fact that you're not even living your own life. You're moving through life at the beat of these thoughts that have been implanted into you by outside sources, right? So I don't want you to freak out or nothing, but don't freak out, but really understand that most of your thoughts, the majority of your thoughts, are not even yours, and you're moving and you're living in accordance to these thoughts. Therefore, you're living in an accordance to something that is truly not you.
Yeah, so what Jason is touching upon is basically the idea of your programming. So what he means by the thoughts not being your thoughts, it's actually the thoughts of your parents, your siblings, your loved ones. You know, when you grow up in a certain environment, your thoughts are catered to what you're programmed to believe and think. And sometimes, you know, if you're in a great environment, you've been planted some really beautiful seeds. And sometimes when you're not in such a great environment, and everybody's just a victim of a victim. So we're not blaming anyone by any means, but when you come in a space that's not such a great environment, of course, your thoughts are going to be not such great thoughts. And that's the programming that sticks with you for your whole life until you take the skill set learned by self-development and, you know, really being in the driver's seat of your life to change those thoughts. So it's our responsibility, no matter what programming that has been lent to us by our family members or friends or even teachers. One little tiny event could happen to us that when we're, let's say, 5 years old, that can transform our lives. And that sounds so powerful, but it's so true. These are the thoughts that have been given to us. So, of course, when they're not such great thoughts, what do we have to do? We have to change those thoughts, and we have to change them by reprogramming the brain. And how we do this, one avenue, of course, is self-development, doing things like courses like this. But we have to really think of being consciously aware of our thoughts, and the tipping scale is 51%. If we just think 51% or more positive thoughts, our whole life has the ability to transform. And now this sounds like a very out there concept if you've never heard anything like this, but I promise you, this is actually like science driven. So the idea is if you can at least create in your mind 51% or more positive thoughts throughout the day. So, of course, if that's not your programming, what we talked about just a second ago, what you have learned, you know, when you were younger, growing up in a certain environment, if it wasn't that positive, you have to be responsible for reprogramming your own brain. Sounds like a big task, but the beautiful thing is that we have the power to do this. You know, we're not like certain animals in the wild who just hunt and eat and survive. We actually have the power to really design a life that we love. And this is a serious task. We have to be really responsible for our thoughts. You know, everything stems from this concept of what starts in the mind gets created out into the universe. So just keeping with the idea, 51% more positive thoughts really has the ability to transform your life. And you can start tomorrow. Just something so simple as every time you catch yourself saying a negative thought, boom, switch it around in your brain. You know, saying something like, oh, I'm so stupid. Yeah, well, if you keep telling the universe that, it's going to lend you that same idea, you know? So if you say that to yourself, boom, catch yourself right in the act and say, you know, I'm actually working towards being the best version of myself. Nobody's perfect. That's a really simple idea and concept. We all know that, you know? But if you really take responsibility for the words that you say and really understand that thoughts and words become things, you have the power to take those negative thoughts and transform them into positive thoughts. It just starts with habit, you know? Every day, the second you catch yourself saying something negative, boom, nip it right in the bud and change it into a positive thought. And you have the power to do that with yourself. Just become aware, you know, just really become aware of what comes out of your mouth, the thoughts you think, or the words that you say, because they have so much power behind them. And you're really, you know, starting today, here on out, you have the power to change anything that you learned from the past that doesn't fit you. You know, things happen to us. That's a part of life. They're all learning, growing experiences. But if you don't learn and grow from them and you stay stuck in them, of course, you won't be able to proceed forward and develop yourself into the best version of yourself if you're stuck in something in the past. So think about 51% more positive can transform your life.
Definitely. And the last point for this particular section that we want to touch on is set the tone for your life, because I think that's what all this adds up to that we've talked about so far, is really setting the tone for your own life. You know, there's a story or a saying that, you know, if you have two people walking together at different paces, what you'll find is at a certain point they begin to walk at the same pace. Now, what you want to look at when we're thinking of that statement is who adjusted to whose pace, right? And then whose pace are you adjusting to? You got to look at that, right? Because you want to make sure that you're setting the tone for your own life. And how do you set the tone for your own life? Number one, you got to be conscious of how you're moving. You got to be conscious of how you're thinking. You got to be conscious of the things that you're indulging in. All of these things are setting a tone for your life, right? It's almost like working out. If you're, if you go to a workout class and they're like, all right, guys, so we're going to get started in a one, in a two, in a one. You're like, oh, this is cool. One and a two. Then they're like, all right, kick it up. 1, 2, 1, 2. You're like, whoa, this is different. It's a different tone. So the same proves true with your life. When you look at your life, right? What do we see a lot of? We see a lot of people with stress, and we see a lot of people with anxiety, which basically means that people are anxious. And in some of these scenarios, what's actually happening is that they've allowed something outside of their self to set the tone for their life, and now their life is either moving faster than they were prepared to walk, or it's moving slower than they wish to walk, right? So they're moving to this rhythm or pace that doesn't stand true to who they are as an individual. So why do we bring this up to you guys? It's for this reason. You have to decide to set the tone for your life. Before you say, all right, yeah, I'm going to set a tone for my life, what's the first thing you need to figure out? What is the tone you wish to set for your life? Because there's different speeds to this thing that we call life, and that's okay. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to work until all day long. I'm not going to get any sleep. And some people are doing this not because it's true to who they are, but just because it's the cool thing to do right now. Everybody's going to be an entrepreneur. Everybody's going to be a self-made millionaire, right? But if it's not true to who you are, then you really don't need to travel that road. Choose your pace. Choose the tone that makes sense for you, because you do not want to be in a situation where life is moving faster than you were prepared to move, or life is moving slower than you actually want to go, because that's going to leave you feeling anxious, or that's going to leave you feeling frustrated or stressed, and you're not living life on your terms in that scenario, right? So figure out what is the tone of your life. And also another thing when we talk about tone that's important to mention is this. What kind of person are you? Because you have a spectrum of different personality types, and you have a spectrum of different ways of being, right? So what does that look like? It looks like this. Some people can have chaos ringing all around them and be unaffected. They can push forward. They can keep going. They can keep their head straight. Meanwhile, someone else can get cut off by a car first thing in the morning, and then the whole rest of their day is just down the toilet. It's gone. You know what I mean? They can't believe that somebody will cut them off. What was that person thinking? Oh, this day is going to be like this, and it's going to be like that. And they just spiral out of control, right? Meanwhile, someone else can have, something crazy happen to them, and they're just totally unaffected. What's that a difference in? It's a difference in tonality. It's a difference in the tone in which these individuals live. Some people need the drama. Some people need the gossip. Some people need the rah-rah type of life, right? It feeds them. It fuels them. And then some people are just peaceful. They don't need that stuff. They don't even react to that stuff, right? You couldn't even get them to engage in that stuff. So the question is, who are you in this world? Because the world we live in right now, is drama, is rah-rah, is stress, anxiety, it's fast-paced, right? It's hard to even catch up or keep up with how the world's moving. So you have to decide, who am I? What's my tonality, right? Am I easily affected? Am I with that drama? Am I with that? Does that fuel me? Does that make me feel good? Or do I feel really bad when I'm engaged in these type of things? Because if you feel really bad engaged in these type of things, then that's not true to who you are. And you don't have to be. And I say this, and I'm going to say this, I say this humbly, not in any kind of like funny way. You know what I mean? But, I grew up in areas where you had to be about the rah-rah. You know what I mean? It was like, if something was happening, you had to stand your ground. You had to be this, tough individual and about all these different type of things. But as I grew and I got exposed to more, I realized that that's not something I want to subscribe to. That's not me as an individual. Anybody who knows me know I'm super laid back. And I don't think anybody has, well, as of recently, who's known me over the past, I don't know, 10, 15 years has ever seen me truly upset or fuming or anything like that, because I just figured out that I'm not that person. You know what I mean? And the same could be true for you. You don't have to live in the chaos. You don't have to live in the drama. Life is not a reality show. Life is not Jersey Shore. You know what I mean? They would want you to believe that. That's why they call it reality TV, because they want you to think that that's how reality is. But in actuality, that is not reality, and it does not have to be yours. You have the power to set the tone for your life. I was ranting. Go ahead, Nikki.
Okay. I've been doing this with you a long time. It's okay.
I know. You know how I get. You know how I get.
So what does this all mean? This is pretty much what we're going down to. So we're going to talk about next activating that second brain, which is your gut.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So that's me again. Yes.
Yes.
I get to keep ranting. Let's go.
Go for it.
All right. So yeah. Section 2. What does it all mean? First thing is activating the second brain. So I'm going to try to talk about this without getting too scientifical. We're going to keep it very basic. But when I first heard this, someone said, "Oh, do you know that the body actually has two brains?" And I'm like, "Oh, they're trying to be like all deep. What are they talking about?" But in actuality, it turns out that the body does actually have two brains, and the brain that's in your head is not the biggest brain in your body, right? So the biggest brain in your body, again, without getting too scientific with it, but the biggest brain in your body is actually your stomach. So your stomach is in constant communication with your brain. Why is this important, right? It's important because you hear terminology like gut feeling. Oh, go with your gut feeling. And we're like, oh, that's just like a saying. But no, that's an actual thing. Because a lot of the messaging that your brain receives comes from your gut. A lot of the things that you would attribute to be you, a lot of the behavior where you're like, oh, I eat French fries because I love French fries. Actually, your stomach loves French fries, and it told your brain that you love French fries, and then your brain told you that you love French fries. You know what I mean? So there's a system in place that we have to be privy to, and we have to understand that there's a communication happening between the stomach and the brain. And the reason why that's important is because a lot of times the stomach has an initial, which we call your intuition, has an initial feeling about any given situation or circumstance, right? And what happens? Our stomach, being the larger brain, says, hey, wait a minute, I think XYZ. And then that goes up to the brain upstairs, and the brain upstairs says, nah, it's not even that. It's not that. You might be feeling like this, but it's probably something else, right? So how many times do we have the intuition, or how many times do we have the gut feeling, and then we talk ourselves out of it? We think ourselves out of our initial feeling, our intuition, because we don't understand that intuition is actually coming from the larger brain in the body. So when you say, oh, I had a gut feeling, it's not just some cute saying. Like, this is an actuality, you know what I mean? And not to get too far off. Oh, Dan said sweet potato. Not to get too far off.
Same here.
Not to go too far down the rabbit hole. Not the rabbit hole, but not to get too far off. But to kind of put this in context, if you're eating a lot of toxic things, and there's a lot of toxicity in your stomach, it's sending a lot of not so good messages to your brain, right? So that communication, it's like almost like you wouldn't want your initial brain to be foggy. So not to get onto not to talk about food in any kind of way, but I just want to illustrate the relationship between your gut and your brain is in constant communication, and your initial communication actually comes from your gut. And if you want to go deeper, now let's not go too deep. But the initial, just understand this: it comes from your gut, and we have to learn how to trust our initial feeling, our intuition. You have to trust your intuition because your mind sometimes cannot be trusted. It will talk you out or talk you in to certain things that you should not be engaged in, right? So it's not always there with your best interest in mind, right? Because it's not always the best things inside of you that are communicating with each other.
Right.
Put it
Yeah.
lightly, right?
For sure. And then thinking about your intuition and also in conjunction with the idea of critical thinking. So it's not just intuition, like intuition is your gut feeling. It's said that your intuition is like God talking to you and prayer is you talking to God. So it's like really your subconscious like screaming at you. But then we want to also pair that with critical thinking. You know, sometimes our intuition is driven too much by emotion. So it's not necessarily our intuition, but the assumption of our interpretation of the intuition. So really using the idea of critical thinking to put in action things that make sense for you in your life that will yield you the results that you're looking for. So it's important to look at all the factors when it comes to critical thinking, not just see what's on the surface. Sometimes people are so easily swayed, or they call it like gullible, you know, just believe in just accept what everyone else around them is saying. Sometimes it's something like, you know, certain family members might tell you a specific thing and it's just 100% true because this one person said it. Well, I really encourage you to get really in touch with the idea that just because someone has a certain relationship to you doesn't necessarily mean that they have the best advice for you. You know, a lot of people think that they may know you well and they might suggest certain things that sound right to them based on their programming, like we talked earlier, but it might not necessarily be the right thing for you. So you have to be in the driver's seat and really, you know, take other people's advice into consideration, but use critical thinking to make decisions for yourself. Because at the end of the day, everyone around you can give you certain tips of advice or give you, you know, their perspective on what you should and shouldn't do with your life or whatever the topic matter may be. But at the end of the day, you are the one that's going to live with the consequences of your decisions. So being really aware of the idea of thinking critically and taking people's advice, but don't live and breathe by other people's advice. Really start becoming mature in your decision making by doing what feels right based upon your intuition and using critical thinking. Try to remove the emotion out of it and really see things from a neutral perspective. When you seek things out from a neutral perspective, it really gives you the opportunity to make a really logical decision rather than a rash decision based on, you know, intense emotion or being caught up in the moment or being swayed by other people's opinions. There's so many things that can get to your decision making and maybe sway you in a way that doesn't necessarily make sense for you. But in the heat of the moment, it sounds right or it feels right. Or, you know, one person might tell you something, you're like, oh, yes, that's exactly what I should do. But and when you take a step back and see things from a neutral perspective, it really gives you the opportunity to make decisions and choose things for yourself that really suit you well, rather than being caught in the moment and just doing something on instincts. You know, there's the idea that intuition, listening to your gut, but there's also, you know, if you're too emotion driven, you might be getting swayed by that and not really listen to your intuition, but making up in your mind what you think your intuition is saying or what you want to do. You know, you convince yourself, well, I want to do this and this is what I'm going to do. And, you know, you might like ignore something like your intuition. Well, you can do that. But the problem is there's consequences that come along with that. So when you're not making the right decision, it could be something so simple, like, you know, stealing some paper clips from your office. The instinct says, you know, maybe I need these paper clips for home. There's thousands of paper clips here, and they can spare me 100 paper clips. Well, in actuality, that's not really the right thing to do. So in that moment, you might think, no one will mind, but the universe knows you're not in alignment with your higher self and doing what's right. So you might not realize it, but stealing those 100 paper clips can really cause you to maybe like, something silly like run a red light and get a ticket, or stub your toe and be in pain for 24 hours. So just keep in mind, like really always choosing to do the right thing, using your intuition to help you make decisions, but also thinking critically and doing what's right and what's in alignment with your higher self. And at the end of the day, the more you make those decisions that are in alignment with what's right, the more good will come your way. 100%.
Definitely. And we gotta, it's important that we use critical thinking for sure. And another important aspect of that is drawing conclusions. What you see a lot of is people thinking and never ever get to a conclusion on any matter whatsoever. They're in the sport of thinking, right? So they think themselves crazy, or they run these races with no finish line in sight, right? There's no clear finish line. It's like, all right, you're engaged in this race. Where's the finish line? I don't know. I'm just racing, right? So we don't want to get into just thinking about stuff and taking advice and never reaching a conclusion, because conclusions are important, because once you reach one conclusion, it settles a matter. It settles something that's occupying brain space, right? If I'm constantly thinking about let's say I'm thinking about going to school. I'm like, you know what? I want to go back to school. I really want to, get a psychology degree or something of that nature, right? I'm thinking about it. I don't know. Then a couple months later, I really want to go to school. I've been thinking about going to school, but I don't know. You know what I mean? And then we fast forward to next year, and I see Nikki at Walmart. She's like, "Hey, did you ever end up going to school?" I still been thinking about it. I just, you know what I mean? You never get to that conclusion. Therefore, you're occupying a bunch of brain space, and when you don't conclude on things, it becomes a habit. So basically, you have, just imagine this: imagine an art studio, right? With 100 canvases in it, and they're all 60% done, right? There's paint everywhere, there's paintbrushes everywhere, and there's just a bunch of art that's not complete. That's how a lot of people's mind looks. It's a lot of ideas, a lot of thoughts, a lot of visions, a lot of dreams, a lot of I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, but there's no conclusion. You haven't concluded on anything. And we must conclude, because when we conclude, that's a victory for us when we're able to conclude on something, because it gives us closure. And once you begin to get closure on not only situations, but get closure on projects that you're involved in, that becomes a habit. And then succeeding becomes a habit. And that closure of, even in the fashion of checking things off, like in your mind, like, oh, I used to think about this, but then I came to the conclusion that, boom. And when you came to that conclusion, it didn't occupy your brain space no more. But what I want you guys to take into consideration is this: you only have so much brain space. So all of the things that you're not concluding on, that are taking up space in your brain, are preventing you from introducing new things in there. There may be, no, I'm not even gonna say there are so many things possible for your life you couldn't even begin to imagine. But a lot of us never get there because we hold on to everything and we never conclude on anything. We just hold on to it and we pull it out, we play with it, we put it back. We pull it out, we play with it, we put it back, right? But there's a saying that someone told me and it never left me. And it said, full hands can't receive.
Yes.
Right? And as simple as that sounds, it says everything. Because it's like, if I got my hands full of stuff, I don't care how good it is what you have to give me. I can't even take it from you because my hands are full. Right? So we got to be able to conclude on things and then put them away. All right, I concluded on that. That's finished. Let me put that over here. What's next? But if you never conclude, you don't get to go to the what's next. And what's next is the great things that you want for your life. But you just holding on to the stuff that you've been holding on to forever. And if you don't if you don't conclude on it and then put it away, you're going to get to the end of your life and you're going to have the same things that you had taking up your brain space that you had in the beginning of your life. And that's not where you want to be. That's not a powerful place. So conclude on the things that have been worrying you, the things that have been stressing you, the things you've been anxious about, the things you've been back and forth about, and you've been indecisive on. Conclude on those things and then put them away and make room for new things. Right? That's how we break free. Make room for new things, so new things can come in. You get some new excitement. You take some new action. You get in some new circles, some new environments, and new things start to happen in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the things that have been happening were all of that in a bag of chips, then you wouldn't even want new things to happen. You know what I mean? So you gotta make room for the new. And the only way you make room for the new is either to conclude on something and put it away, or conclude on the fact that it's not worth concluding on and put it away. But don't just keep dancing around with the same ideas and worries and concepts forever and ever and ever. It's not gonna work for you.
Yeah, and it gets exhausting. You waste a lot of energy just expending thoughts. You're living in the past thinking about something that happened 5 years ago, a breakup or something that didn't go quite the way you wanted to. And you're just wasting so much precious energy when you could be spending it in the present and really enjoying what life has to offer. And not only drawing conclusions is critical, but also drawing conclusions that are from your perspective and what you want for yourself. A lot of times, like I talked about earlier, we get swayed by the people around us, our circle of influence, and sometimes we follow the crowd too much and we lose ourselves. If someone's wearing this certain style, then you go over here and start wearing this certain style, and then, oh wait, the style changed to this, so now we're going over here and following this trend. It's so much more freer to just do what you want to do and follow your own trends and make your own decisions. Because when you follow the crowd too much, you get lost in the crowd. Like, true leaders can be born, but they also can be developed. Sometimes, leadership skills are a quality that has to develop over time, sharpening the strategies. But if you're too caught up in what everybody else is doing, or, what's popular, or like the pop culture and what, the latest fashions are, or like what the most popular celebrities are doing and fantasizing about their lives, you're not putting enough energy and focus into your own life. Follow your intuition again with your decision making. And sometimes it might be against the grain of what everybody else is doing. But like the saying says, take the higher road. It's less traveled. It's less traveled because the higher road takes a certain type of person in order to experience that lifestyle, because not everybody's willing to commit to that. Not everybody's willing to commit to their dreams, especially you see this a lot in relationships. Like, one person may be growing, whether it's working on themselves, eating healthy, or whether it's, doing some reading of books, self-development, or it's working out at the gym, and the other person in the relationship is not doing that and doesn't want to do that. So rather than motivating the other person or being motivated by the other person to participate in the same way, they bring them down. Like the crabs in the bucket. You have a bucket of crabs, and one crab starts crawling up to the top of the bucket, and what happens to that poor crab? Gets pulled down back by the other crabs, because, the other crabs don't want to see you escape. Sometimes you're in a relationship where you're working on yourself, you're doing all these great things, and the other person, who happens to be a crab, doesn't want you to grow and expand yourself, because then that makes them feel guilty. And then that's a reflection on them, because they feel this obligation to do the same thing for themselves, but they don't have that same kind of drive that you do. So really, really, really get clear on what you want for yourself in your future. Follow your intuition and don't follow the crowd. Do what makes sense for you in your life. And sometimes people in your lives for reasons, and sometimes people in your lives for seasons. So just because someone's in your life right now, if they're not in alignment with what you're trying to create for yourself in your future and they're holding you back, do not be swayed by them. Be really, really responsible for your own life, because you don't want to be that crab at the top of the bucket, get pulled down every time you do something for yourself, get pulled down every time you want to start going back to the gym, get pulled down every time you start on this healthy kick of eating. You want to be sure that you're making decisions, the right decisions for yourself, because that's what you want for yourself. And that's what you want for your future. And that's what you want for your family. Don't let other people and their negative opinions or their negative viewpoints sway you from being the best version of yourself. And then moving on to our next subject, our last and final subject. So we're going to breeze a little faster this last round.
This went by quick.
Yes, it did. I'm actually having a lot of fun. You know, these are like timeless topics that you can apply to any area of your life. So in 6 months from now, 6 years from now, 60 years from now, these ideas and strategies can really be applied to anything that's happening in your life as you grow and develop through that transition. So the last thing we want to talk about is the power of visualization. I touched a tidbit on this a little bit earlier, but the idea of seeing things finish before they begin. So now we're critically thinking, we're using our intuition. How are we going to create those things we want for ourselves in our future? And that's with the power of visualization. There are many different tactics, but that's what we're going to talk to you tonight about. So what is visualization? Essentially, seeing whatever your goal is before you actually create it or reach it. So say, for example, it's something with weight loss. You know, that's a big thing this time of year. Say you want to lose, let's say 40 pounds. You actually sit with yourself, you know, before you start on this journey and visualize yourself as that weight loss goal has already been complete. And when you do this, you really start to activate your subconscious mind in your brain to start to transition you to creating that goal and making it into reality, because you know your mind and the universe only know yes. Like the universe and your subconscious mind only knows what you feed it. So if you start to visualize yourself as that 40-pound weight loss, you will then start to create it. It's just the way of the universe. It's an actual law. So that means like it's been tested and proven time and time and time and time again. So when you visualize, so what I mean by visualize is literally sit with yourself and let the vision come to your mind. When you visualize whatever goals or whatever you're trying to accomplish, it starts to move things around in life to make that happen. So whether you want to draw it out like in word form, you can journal visualization. There's many different tactics, and we will go in that as time goes on. But just really the idea of visualization is seeing what you're trying to accomplish finish before it begins. And it's a really powerful thing. There's been so many different studies and tests, like, for example, in a basketball game, they have certain people practice X number of times. They had certain people not practice at all. And then certain people just visualize without practicing. And the people who visualize without practicing have almost the same results as the people who actually did the practicing, just by reprogramming the brain to see that winning game happen, or to see whatever goal you have in mind finish before it begins. It starts to transition things for you. And what happens is the more often you do this, the faster you are to get to that goal. And the beautiful thing is, like, you can start this second. You know, you can get off this call, maybe spend a little time journaling about this. Maybe spend 5 minutes every day just closing your eyes and visualizing your end goal, whatever that goal and dream you have in mind. And not only just seeing it, but most importantly, feeling it. Fester up the emotion that you would feel once you have this goal accomplished. What will it feel for you? What will it feel for your family? What kind of impact will it create for you in your life? And feel those positive emotions festering up and really sit with that feeling. And that feeling is gonna like hit like auto shift, flash the ability for this to happen so much faster when you visualize it, and in conjunction with the visualization, feel that deep yearning and desire fulfilled within yourself, and then you'll be able to create it that much faster. And it just takes consistency. It takes concentration, and it doesn't take much. 5 minutes a day. We use things like mirrors to help create this faster as well. So there's many different tactics, but just think and understand and realize like you can start tonight. You know, don't feel like your chance of doing this it has gone and passed because you have never done this before. You can really activate this visualization in any shape and form. You know, like I said, 5 minutes a day is really all you would need.
And I think a powerful thing to realize, or let me share this, and then I think this is powerful to even think about here. But you can actually see way more with your eyes closed than you can see with your eyes open. And the reason why I say that is because we look around, we see things, we see what's in front of us, we see what's around us when we go these different places, but the imagination has no limits. When you go to your imagination, you can see whatever it is that you can think of, right? Whatever you can think of, you can see. So how do we use this? How do we practice it? We practice it by, like Nikki said, maybe 5 minutes a day, right? Take a moment, be with yourself, close your eyes, and see what it is that you want. Like, see the actual vision of it, see it happening, and watch that almost like you're watching a movie that you're starring in, right? Because your life is nothing more than a movie that you're starring in.
Right.
So you visualize and you look at that as though it's a movie, like a trailer to a movie, like coming soon. And then you see, you know what I mean? You see that vision of like, you in the house, or you in that car that you want, right? Or you starting the business that you want to start. And you're watching this like, oh wow, this looks good. Oh, I can't wait to see this. Oh, I can't wait till this comes out. You got to have that same kind of feeling because you got to know that it's coming, right? It's important that when we visualize with the right understanding, right? We don't want to just be like, I'm going to think about me in this car that I'm never going to get. And I'm going to, you know what I mean? I'm going to see it in my mind, because it's not going to work. You got to have the right intention when you're visualizing. You have to understand. Listen, can I say something deep?
Go for it.
Go for it, right? I'm going to say something deep because
we're at 8 minutes left. Keep that in mind, Jay Brown. 8 minutes.
I got you. I'm going to keep it simple, but I'm going to get deep. What we got to understand, this is what someone shared with me, and it blew my mind, and it made sense to me. And it might not even make sense right now, but maybe a year from now, it might hit you and be like, that's what he meant by that. But the future, well, let's say it in order. The past, the present, and the future are all happening at the same exact time. So what does that mean? It means that us sitting right here inside of this moment, we can be in this moment, we could be in the past, or we can be in the future, all right now, based on how we visualize and how we think. If I'm like, you know what, this happened to me when I was 8 years old, and it's really tall, and now I'm there. I'm living that again. I'm having the feeling. I might even be able to smell what smell was in the area. I'm there. You know what I mean? Or if you're a visionary, you're like, wow, I'm thinking of a skyscraper. All right, I see this elevator. This is what the floor is gonna. You're there. You know what I mean? You're there. You're in that time and space. So it's our job when we visualize, right? It's almost like we're Michael J. Fox now at this point, because we're back to the future mode. Because we can, you know what I mean? We can visualize and go to the future. We can go to the future and see our finished product, see what it is that we're going to accomplish. And the beauty of this is that when you get skillful enough at visualization, you can not only go to the future and see these things done and finished and complete, but you can walk your way back to the present. Now, what's the power of that? That's reverse engineering. It's like, yeah, I see myself in that car, but wait a minute, how did I get to there? How did I get there? Well, let me go to the car and work my way back. Now you get back to the present moment, and you're like, all right, I see what I have to do. I see what it's going to take for me to get there, right? Because you were already there, and all you did was trace your way back to where you're at. And then how do you get there again? Just move in the same direction forward in those footsteps that you traced. So when we think about visualization, we have to understand that I'm gonna be the guy to put the sauce on it. This is time traveling when we're visualizing, because we're visualizing the future, and then we're coming back in the present to make that happen. But when you understand that you visualizing is not any less real than you being on this live stream with us right now. me visualizing my future is no less real than me talking to you guys right now, because all of these things are taking place inside of time and space. And when you visualize and you hold these images in your mind of the things that you want, here's the other beauty of it. The universe starts to move accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
You got to almost think like you have your own army of scavengers that work for you, right? So when you hold the image in your mind and you're like, all right, that's the future. They're like, okay, all right, boss, that's the future. Let's go out here and start making it happen. Let's go gather the things that are needed. We spend so much time worried about how something's gonna work. We don't need to worry about how something's gonna work. What we need to worry about is why that something, or why we want that something to work. And when you know why, and then once you have a powerful why around what it is that you want to accomplish or you want to see come to fruition, then you hold that image and things will start to work all around you. So visualization, extremely powerful, but understand that visualization is not some make-believe unicorn, leprechaun. Woo, this is fun. I'm imagination land. No, this is real deal. Like
Yeah.
this is you just going to the future and seeing something that's possible for you. And whether you're seeing the dream that you're saying this is the life I want, or you're seeing the nightmare, whatever one that you're going to, that's where you're going to end up. So if you're like, my future's going to be trash and it's never going to work out, you're right. You are 100% right. But if you're thinking, oh, you know what? This is my future. This is what I'm going to accomplish. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to make that happen. You're also right.
Right.
But whatever your vision is, hold on to it, own it, and understand that it's just as real as you being right here listening to us talk tonight.
Right. And of course, like if you don't believe in it, it's not going to work for you. It's only going to work if you really, really truly believe in it and you put your energy towards it. And like I said, those feelings that you feel, you bring them and create them into fruition, and that then sends them into the future. And talking about all these goals and visualization, in order to accomplish all the things that you want to accomplish, especially if you're a go-getter, a real achiever, and you have a lot of really great things and ideas that you have for your future, how are we going to make this all happen? Well, one very important key factor, and I can tell you this firsthand because I am an entrepreneur, and without this, I will not be where I am today, is the importance of mastering your schedule. Like, you can visualize till the cows come home, but if you're not putting the steps in action that cause this to create this into the future, then of course you're not going to be able to accomplish all that you set out to do. So talking about the idea of your schedule is really just figuring out a way that this makes sense for you. So I could give you a bunch of different tactics, but you really have to try and figure out a style of scheduling that works well for you. And then in our courses in the future, we're going to really dive into this a little bit more in depth, like different strategies and things like that. But just for now, really thinking about the idea of like, you can visualize, you can goal set, you can goal plan, you can buy the coolest agenda out there, the awesomest law of attraction agenda in rose gold. But if you're not actually putting the plan in action,
hey, that's an insight. That's an insight.
He bought this really cool rose gold law of attraction agenda, and what happened? He never used it because he didn't.
Wait. We got to add context, though. I just want to make this clear for the viewers.
Okay.
I did not know it was rose gold.
Right.
I thought it was gold. They sent me a rose gold one. But yeah, sorry. I got much better.
Yes, I'm sorry. He meant to get gold, but he actually wanted with rose gold. But whatever the case may be, if you have this really amazing agenda and you're never using it, it's going to do absolutely diddly squat for you. Mastering your schedule, if it's an agenda. Me personally, I work with a small calendar to track my sales and things like that, but I figured out a way to master my schedule with reminders, and I set everything in a reminder, and I tell everybody to use reminders because it really works well for me. And I just mastered my schedule with that. I have them set up in a certain type of way where things go off 2 hours before an event, or if it's something that I have to plan for in the future, I might have it set for the night before as a reminder. And I live by reminders from my phone. Whatever this looks like for you, just understand and know once you get your schedule really fine-tuned, you will be able to start putting the action steps in place to create whatever goals that you're setting out for, whatever you're visualizing. But of course, you know, the idea of visualization is not like envision it and then it will come to you automatically. There is a lot of steps in between all of that, you know, real hard work and being responsible for your actions in order to create that for this to become reality. So as beautiful as visualization is, it does take work behind it to make things, you know, come into fruition and actually accomplish your goals.
Yeah, so the planning is definitely super duper important.
I love to plan.
Yeah, she's the planner.
I am the planner.
I'm getting used to it. I'm getting used to it, but it's taking work, right?
Right.
If you guys haven't noticed, I'm more of like I'm in the moment. I'm like, all right, yeah, well, it will work. We're just gonna do it. But the last thing for tonight, right, is staying goal and solution oriented. And why is this extremely important? Uh, I would love to tell you that when you're working on, you know, hitting your goals, creating your dream life, that, you know, if you visualize and you're positive all of the time, you're not going to run into problems. It's quite the opposite, but it really just is a matter of perspective, right? Because when you start to build, when you start to build things for your life, when you start to move, I'm gonna say against the grain, and the only reason I say that is because we have a societal flow of people following normalcy, right? And building an extraordinary life is as you can see, um, based on the math, is not normal. It takes something extraordinary or extraordinary to build a phenomenal life, right? So when you start to move in that direction, what you may notice is that problems will arise. You will meet some sort of resistance. But the important thing to understand is this: that resistance that you meet is not there to destroy you or deter you. It's actually there to empower you, because every single problem is an opportunity for a solution. And to be successful in this world, in this space and time, you need to be very skillful at being solution based. Anyone who you know on this planet Earth that is successful in any way, shape, form, or fashion delivers a solution to a problem.
Yeah.
So for us in our regular, you know, day-to-day life and in our journey of building a life that is successful for us. And the success doesn't mean you have $1 million. Success could just be that you're happy and joyful and that, you know, life is just working on your terms. But how do we get there? We get there by staying solution oriented, so that when those problems do arise, understand that it's not a problem. It's just an opportunity for a solution. And the more solutions that you can collect, the more solutions that you can put into your little bag, right? The more powerful that you become. Because the more problems you solve for yourself, you can solve more problems for people outside of yourself, right? And when you solve one problem, chances are when that situation arises again, you already have that key. You already got the key. Oh, I've seen that before. All right, no problem. Let me unlock that, right? So for us, when we're building and we're in builder mode and we're on this journey, we have to stay solution oriented, because if we have the perspective of, wait, now I have a bunch of problems and things are happening to me, you can lose everything that you built, right? So building, 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 building. When the problems come, be excited. Be excited about the problems, because they're opportunities for you to actually add more solutions to your bag, right? to have answers for other people who may come up against some of the things that you're coming up against. So never look at problems as though they're there to destroy you or what's the other word I was looking for? Well, destroy you or turn you away from the goal that you're working towards. They're actually there to propel you, because when you can turn a problem, when you can apply a solution to a problem, it's going to propel you towards your goal or your end destination or destiny even faster. So we got to have that level of discipline to understand that when we do start building, things are going to happen. And when things happen, you have to have the correct perspective to understand that something's happening for you right there in that moment, right? Like even with this live stream, when I tell you everything that could go technically wrong before this thing started went technically wrong. And if you weren't, if we weren't, or we haven't done the work that we've done so far up to this point, we could have easily said, like, this thing's not working. We're just going to tell people we'll do it a different day, right? If we rewind, let's say, I don't know, 15 years in the past, that would have been my approach. I would have been like, you know what? This ain't working. We're just going to do a different day. I'll figure it out, and then we'll tell people a different day. But we were able to say, you know what? We said this on the other thing. What's great about this? What's the plus side to this, right? Oh, if we go live on the regular page, more people will be able to see it, and maybe that will give them an insight on what it is that we're doing with this whole thing, and allow them to come to the next stream when maybe they wouldn't have had that access. Or like Nikki said, maybe somebody heard something tonight that if this stream had not been shared in the places that it's been shared, you would have never got that information. You would have never had that moment. So everything's happening. Everything happens for a reason, and everything has a purpose. So once you understand that, you stay solution oriented and just keep pushing, keep building, and it's all good from there.
Yeah. Speaking of live stream, so we're going to wrap this up tonight. I do want to encourage you, if you haven't officially registered, to do so. You'll be getting email reminders and access to exclusive content. Also, the people that are officially members in the private group, they will be receiving the whole PowerPoint presentation of this live stream. So you'll be able to gain access to these recordings, as well as the PowerPoint presentation, which we'll be uploading there sometime within the next 24 hours. If things go according to plan tomorrow, we'll have that PowerPoint available throughout the presentation. If not, you'll have it to access at any time, and that's yours to keep, a small gift from us to you as a thank you for participating. So again, you want to officially register if you haven't done so already. And you also want to make sure you're a member of the Kings and Queens Academy group. I'm going to share the link of that group page on this live stream. So if you don't have access to that, you can click on the link and ask to be added to it, and we'd be happy to add you to it. And that's where we will be streaming again tomorrow. Maybe we'll do this again, both platforms, to try to reach a larger audience, but you'll only get access to the extra tidbits if you're in that private group.
Sure.
All right. Thank you all for joining us today. I had a lot of fun. Did a lot of really powerful things. We actually have an assignment, just a small course in action assignment that we're going to post in that private group. Just a little tidbit of something that you can do between now and tomorrow night at 8 p.m. to take the information that you learned and apply it to your life. So thank you so much for joining us. Again, we will see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. Please officially register if you haven't done so already. Join that group, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Have a beautiful night.
All right, guys. Have a good one.